Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of January 14th, 2025. I call the meeting to order at 5:30, and I would like to ask for the roll call, please.
Mayor Sidney.
Present.
Reeve Emo.
Present.
Councillor Legree.
Present.
Councillor McWhirter.
Present.
Councillor McDonald.
Present.
Councillor Sobalski.
Present.
And Councillor Andrew Dick.
Present.
Mayor, we do have quorum.
Great, thank you. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Can I please have you stand for O Canada? Any declaration of interest? Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Under the presentation, delegations, announcements, C.2.1, I will be declaring on that tonight.
Thank you. Reeve Emo.
Yes. Delegation C.2.2, I'll be declaring a conflict as well.
All right, duly noted. Thank you. Moving on to delegated presentations. Point 2.1, final report for Code of Conduct complaint file number 31176-33, December 9th, 2024, presented by Tony Fleming of Cunningham Swan, Cardi Little and Bonham, LLP. And we do have Mr. Tony Fleming here via Zoom. Thank you very much, Tony, for attending our council meeting, and I will hand it over to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I see Councillor Dick has left his chair, so I assume this is the report dealing with Councillor Dick, Your Worship?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. I just don't have the agenda open in front of me, Your Worship. No problem. So just by way of brief overview, Your Worship, Council has before it the report that we have prepared with respect to this investigation. What my practice is with respect to these reports is to provide Council with a high-level overview of what the report contains. This is not an opportunity to attempt to revise or rewrite or change the report. The report is what it is. I am here to answer questions Council might have with respect to the recommendations contained in the report. With respect to Councillor Dick, this dealt with an April meeting of Council. It was an open meeting of Council. The councillor made a statement related to a matter that was before the previous term of council. It dealt with a procurement and at that time member of council, now a former member of council, and the procurement. I'm not going to read the statement. The statement's found in the report itself. It was a matter of public record. Therefore, the statement itself is not in dispute. What was necessary to do as part of this report was to assess the statement made by the councillor and then compare that or measure that statement against the appropriate sections of the Code of Conduct. So the issue for this particular statement, when you hear the statement, if you have no background, as I didn't, you have a certain understanding of what is being addressed by the counselor. I did interview the counselor, and he made it clear that his concern was the optics of the procurement itself, which is helpful background for me to have. But the simple statement itself, especially words like, to quote from the statement, unacceptable, uncool, wrong on so many levels, horrible, a person who is listening to that statement, a member of the public, would think that the person to which the statement was addressed did something at best inappropriately, possibly illegally. And the clarifier that this was about quote unquote optics didn't really change the tone of the statement made by the counselor. It was clear from the statement and his demeanor that he was upset about the way this had proceeded in the previous term of council. So our finding is that this was a breach of section 4.1 in that the statements were not respectful of the former counselor and effectively were insinuating that they had engaged in some inappropriate behavior. We also found, when we look at 4.2, that while there were no indecent or abusive words used by the counselor, when you just read or hear what was said, there's definitely this insinuation that this contract had been inappropriately awarded. The counselor also didn't acknowledge that the former counselor at the time of this award had declared a conflict of interest. So as far as I could tell from our investigation, there was in fact no inappropriate behavior. And then finally, we looked at section 5, which talks about conducting yourself with decorum. We put in the report a few case citations about what other courts have found is decorum. Based on that research, our finding is that the statements made were effectively unfounded allegations. They impugn the reputation of the counselor, and that falls below the level of decorum that council would expect. When we get to the recommendation section, we are recommending to council that they tell the counselor to issue a public apology to the person that was the subject matter of his statement, as well as council issuing a formal reprimand to the member. In this case, we've not recommended a financial penalty. As you'll see in the report, while the statements were, we call it ill-informed and inappropriate, I didn't find that there was malice or intent behind those statements after interviewing the member. I didn't make that finding. So in my opinion, my recommendation rather to council is that no financial penalty is necessary. But I do believe that a public apology and a formal reprimand from council would be appropriate in the circumstances. So that concludes the high-level overview, Your Worship. I'm happy to take questions from council.
Great, thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Tony, one quick question with regard to, could you explain this in layman terms? Is it safe to say that everyone understands a police court kind of format? So would you see yourself as the police investigator, prosecutor, and we're the judge and jury here, or how would you, could you explain that, like in terms of the roles? Thank you.
I can, yeah, through you, Your Worship, I can try and draw an analogy. It's a little bit of a few different roles, actually, Councillor. So we definitely form or fulfill the role of an investigator. That's part of the role. But unlike a strict sort of criminal parallel that you're looking at, we also then draw conclusions about the facts that we find in our investigation. So in that sense, I have a certain role as a judge as well, because I'm making findings of fact and I'm then presenting those findings and the recommendations to council. The analogy of a judge ends at the recommendation, because unlike a judge, I don't have any authority to impose you can call it the sentence if you want to keep with that metaphor. I'm simply making a recommendation to council, and it's council's role to decide what to do with that recommendation. So in that respect, my recommendation is no different than any of the staff recommendation you get in the number of reports you receive from staff. So the recommendation that council has before it is nothing but a recommendation. You could accept the recommendation, you could reject the recommendation, or you could amend the recommendation. It's entirely council's decision at that point.
Thank you. Just one more thing. Sorry, I missed it. We need to do the motion to get it on the floor in order to ask questions, so I skipped that. So I'm going to read the motion that Renfrew Town Council receive Integrity Commissioner Tony Fleming's final report in reference to file number 31176-33 dated December 9th, 2024 as information, and further that any recommendations stated within the report are brought forward for council's consideration upon presentation. So I need a mover. Councillor McDonald, seconded by? Councillor Degree, all in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Okay, thank you. Now we can continue. Now it's on the floor. So follow-up, Councillor McDonald?
Thank you. No, Mayor, not a follow-up, just a comment, if I can go ahead. Okay, thank you very much. Tony, this is not specifically driven towards you. It's just a comment to bring to the floor, okay? So thank you.
Certainly.
As I read my comment, I want to state that my position is the same for both reports coming forward tonight. From the research I've done, in my opinion, this is on the scale of 1 to 10. These complaints would be towards the lower end, mid to lower. First, I want to be very clear. I will never order, direct, force, or suggest or enforce any member of Town Council to apologize for any comment as a consequence of a complaint. I respect the members' freedom to decide how they want to deal with their situations. Secondly, I want to deal specifically with the issue of a reprimand or a formal warning. It should be noted that if these complaints took place in the private sector, you would never have this type of public record. It's my opinion, because the report is part of a public record, that this should suffice. The reality is, this complaint with its recommendations are now a matter of that public record. Inherently, these reports now automatically serve as a warning and a reminder to all of us moving forward. And I just have some observations and comments with regard to some extenuating circumstances. Number one, it's my opinion this situation was closely tied to, I'm going to watch my wording here, other situations we've dealt with. I was personally also extremely frustrated at yet another situation that we had to deal with, and that was over budget for the town. And I understand the frustrations. The town of Renfrew, number two, the town of Renfrew YouTube date of the 9th of April 2024, between the 1 hour and 37-minute mark and the 1 hour and 39-minute mark, we have the previous CAO responding to Councillor Dick and stating a few times that basically if we had to redo this, we would do it differently. And then he proceeds to end his response with a statement that he appreciated the councillor's comments. Number three, both complaints are now over 8 months old, and council has been functioning properly and now moving forward in a positive direction. Number four, on page 2 of the report, under the heading of complaint, Councillor Dick's statements is transcribed. At the 6th line down, it states in brackets, slams pen on the table. For the public, this takes place at the 1 hour and 36-minute mark on the Town of Renfrew YouTube channel for 9th April 2024. It's my opinion this is not properly represented as to what took place, yet it ends up conveying a tone that it shouldn't. If Councillor Dick had been talking with his pen in his hand, and as he places his pen on the table, he continues with his statements. I didn't see anything with regard to slamming a pen down. Number 5, on page 6 of the report, the Integrity Commissioner in his conclusion makes the following observations. The Integrity Commissioner, number 1, does not find the statements, as he noted, were made with malice or intent to harm the reputation of the former councillor. He went on to state that we accept the member's explanation that it was not directed towards the former member personally. Number 6, if we were acting in a court of law right now, there would be room for extenuating circumstances. And I believe the biggest extenuating circumstance for both of these reports coming before us today is the Mattaway situation. As the public is aware, there has been extreme frustrations over Mattaway for the last 2 years. I believe this played a role as a backdrop to both reports, as they occurred back in April 2024, 8 months ago. Number 7, I believe because of the public nature of reporting and a public record, compared to a private sector situation, that this is an additional factor that should be accounted for. And number 8, lastly, this is the first complaint. So my conclusion, on the first page, 3rd paragraph, it states, Council must receive the report for information. I believe by accepting both reports today, we will have done our due diligence and have been accountable and transparent to the public. As previously noted, the Mattaway situation has been extremely frustrating for taxpayers and for council. It's not my intention to try to bury anything. In fact, this is now part of the public record, so there's nothing to hide. And rather, due to the extreme extenuating circumstances of the Mattaway backdrop to both reports before us today, I'd like to put forth a motion to amend this motion right now. And the motion was simply to accept this Integrity Commissioner report as information, and then we continue to move forward with this new year, with a new direction and the new CAO, and continue to focus on making Renfrew first. So I don't know, Mayor, if you want me to, my motion to amend would be after the word information, to put a period, and then delete the remainder of the sentence in terms of the motion. So I'd like to put that on the floor.
So you want to remove any further, and further that any recommendations stated within the report are brought forward for council's consideration upon presentation. You want to remove that?
Yes.
Okay.
And to see if it'll hit the floor.
Do you want this done now, or do you want the next report done and then?
I think we can do it for both, and that's my intention for the next report too, once we receive it, to do the same motion.
So we do have a motion on the floor.
Because this is a motion to amend the motion under Robert's rules, the first motion is technically paused until you determine if you have a seconder for this motion to amend the motion, and then you would vote on that. If the motion is amended, then your motion that you're actually dealing with is just received for information. If you don't have a seconder, then that one will die on the floor, and the original motion would be then one that you're dealing with.
So you brought it forward, so we need a seconder for that? Councillor Legree? Any discussion on this? Councillor Legree?
Through you, Mayor Sidney, I have a quick statement I just would like to read. I first off want to say that this is a very difficult topic to discuss, probably one of the most difficult items that council can face. I've known Councillor Andrew Dick for a long time, and now we sit beside each other at the council table. I know that Councillor Andrew Dick, like most of us, sits at this table to help Renfrew move forward. It's not for the pay, it's because we love the town. There are a lot of new faces on council this term, including me, and I will tell you, we've been dealing with one mess after another. It's been very tough on all of us, including staff, and I know, even for myself, sometimes our emotions come out in full force. I do, however, take the personal side out of every decision I make around this table, no matter what is being brought forward. I agree with Councillor Dick that this project should have been handled differently and that the optics were not good, especially since it was 5 years in the works. But I also get that council was in lame duck and there was pressures to get the project done. I believe that the comments on April 9th council meeting by Councillor Dick could have made the public viewing that meeting believe that there was wrongdoing done by the former councillor, even though that councillor declared and left chambers during discussion and voting periods, and also that the town hall project was done inappropriate or illegally, even though I believe that under the heat of the moment, words were taken in the wrong context and probably were portrayed in the wrong way to the viewing public. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Sabelski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I will echo to some extent of Councillor MacDonald, and with the most amount of respect to our Integrity Commissioner who's spoken. To his words, this is his findings, this is his opinion, this is his report, and I do accept it as information, but within that, with all reports, I do find it a bit personally lacking what the councillors have been provided, the fact that it is a complaint from an unnamed source, and the recordings or the findings that was done wasn't provided. We weren't provided with all the back and forth information to make our own decision outside of the report that was provided. So due to that, I'm happy with the acceptance of the report as information, but would have had a different opinion if we were forced into a decision based off of just a report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor McWhorter?
I also agree with my fellow councillors. I think just the fact that this is public and goes on public record is far enough as far as I'm concerned. I share Councillor Dick's passion for what took place, and could have easily been me misusing words or in the heat of the moment. So I am fine with just receiving this as information.
Thank you. Any other review?
So yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with Councillor Dick since Andrew Dick since this report came out, and I reminded him that at the meeting he had approached me after the meeting was over to apologize for some of his comments and indicated that he was going to try and reach out to the former councillor as well. So, and I don't know how that went. Very quickly he recognized that he had made a mistake, and in our conversations he recognized that it's the comments that he had made were, first of all, ill-advised, and then secondly he recognized they could lead damage. So I'm comfortable with his I'm not going to say reform, but his recognition of that he needed to do something different, and he acknowledged, I think, in the report that had he known about the declaration of a conflict and the councillor not being in the room, he probably would have thought differently. And I know in our conversations he also indicated that. So I agree that I think he's in a position where he can make some other choices. Whether he approaches the individual and talks to them about it, or has done that, I'm not sure what's happened. But I can live with the results as well.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything else? No? I'm just going to jump in here. So I agree with everything that's said, and I also agree with the fact that we need to hold council in a high regard of professionalism and all that stuff. That being said, I would hope that on his own terms he did reach out to that individual. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe it could happen between the two of them in the future. But along with what Rivimo said as well, is that the councillor did come up to me as well and expressed his recognition of his passion for his town, and sometimes he lets that passion drive the horse as opposed to holding it back. And I think even we spoke just I believe it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, on looking at give him a look if I think he's going somewhere that he shouldn't be going, and I think he recognizes that. And I probably know better than anybody sitting around this council chambers that whether we make him do a formal apology or whether we don't, there's a whole other thing that's out there that he will have to address and deal with, and that is unfortunately social media. So this is going to be a public thing, and I think it's I get the passion and where he was coming from, and I get the impact it had on the individual, and I hope it didn't have any lasting impacts, definitely. But I think if we're looking at it from a lesson learned, yes, this is the first time we've had an integrity commissioner investigation, and we have one more to go after this, and hopefully that's the end of it until 2026. But I think this is a good eye-opener for all of council to realize that when we sit around this table, we are at the highest degree of professionalism, and we really need to think, I think, before we act. And I think this is the opportunity to all of us to learn from this. And I'm okay with the new motion, but I just do think that we need to hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable. And I think it's improving, and I'm looking forward to the strengthening everything and getting better in the future. But those are just my words. So with that being said, if anybody doesn't have anything else, Rivimo?
What I should have done that night too was offer to get in the middle and see if I could arrange a meeting and maybe have an opportunity for both parties to have a conversation, and I would extend that offer this evening as well if it's necessary. But I should have done it that evening.
Any other questions? All right, so we're going to vote on the amended motion.
We have to vote on the amendment first.
So, okay. Renfrew Town Council received Integrity Commissioner Tony Fleming's final report in reference to file number 31176-33 dated December 9th, 2024 as information. All in favor? That's carried. Now, moving on to C.2.2. And I will turn it over to Mr. Fleming for the next one, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. This report, Your Worship, deals with Reeve Eamon. This deals with two, I'll call them separate incidents, but incident's probably the wrong word because one was a continuing situation. There was an email in February of 2024. Again, I'm not going to read the email. It's set out in full in the report itself. The second aspect of the complaint dealt with notices of motion and actual motion brought in April of 2024. And I'll deal with each of them separately. With respect to the email, again, the language in the email is not in dispute. It speaks for itself. What really the complaint was about is what the email said, how it said it, and what that means in the context of the code of conduct. So my finding is that the language in the email was not respectful of councillors. We did hear from the Reeve that it was an ill-conceived attempt at humor. I take the Reeve at his word that it was an attempt at humor. My view is it was misplaced and did not show the level of respect to other council members that it ought to have. And in that basis, it was a breach of section 4.1. I don't find, as the complaint alleged, that this was some form of intimidation, but I do find that it was disrespectful. With respect to the April notice of motion and the motion itself, this followed from an earlier motion where council resolved to remove the Reeve from boards and committees. The report finds that this was a form of retaliation is probably too strong a word, but it was certainly in response to that motion. That type of motion, even though it was a form of retaliation, is not a breach of the code of conduct. The code of conduct doesn't make that motion itself or the intent behind the motion inappropriate with respect to the code of conduct. I find that the statements made by the Reeve during his presentation of the motion itself were not in breach of the code of conduct. And on the whole, I find that the notice of motion, the presentation of the motion itself, and a secondary notice of motion that followed did not breach the code of conduct. So that leaves us with a breach of code of conduct for 4.1 only on the email itself from February. And so my recommendation to council is that Reeve Eamon apologize to council and that that is made a public apology. Those are my recommendations and the findings, Your Worship. I'm happy to take questions from council.
Great, thank you. So I'll read the motion. The Renfrew Town Council receive Integrity Commissioner Tony Fleming's final report in reference to file number 31176-32 dated January 6, 2025 as information, and further that any recommendation stated within the report is brought forward for council's consideration upon presentation. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McWhorter. And we now open it up for questions. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, and no question, Tony, but thank you for all the work you've done with both reports. For some of the same reasons I mentioned first, there's no need to repeat myself, but I think I'm going to put forth another motion to amend, and the same platform for the clerk that we had before, if we can just put a period after information. As previously noted, I won't force anyone to apologize for any comment made as a consequence for a complaint, and I respect the members' freedom to decide how they want to deal with it. So in keeping that we must accept the report as information, that's what I'd like to have it amended to. So thank you.
So I'll read the amended motion. The Renfrew Town Council receive Integrity Commissioner Tony Fleming's final report in reference to file number 31176-32 dated January 6, 2025 as information. I do have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Legree. Any questions or comments on this? All right. Councillor Andrew Dick?
Is this like, Mr. Mayor, is this when we can make our comments, or do we, this is where we make our, if I may have the floor?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
In regards to this motion?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
In this motion. And so I am, excuse me, I am going to make a comment that in all the dealings I've had with Mr. Fleming since I've been voted on council have been with the utmost respect, professionalism, and absolute stand-up guy. It was just, he's very professional. So I just want to make a comment on the recommendation of forcing Revimo to make an apology. I have some very serious concerns about this because the Municipal Act does not state that an apology is a remedy. And then if we force him to make an apology and he does make that apology, are we going to be satisfied with that apology? Will it be the correct tone? Will it mean anything? So that's where my issue lies. How do we force someone to have an apology? And then if he doesn't mean it, we feel he doesn't mean it, do we file a complaint to the IG that we felt he didn't mean it enough? So that's where my issue lies. My issue also lies with forced apologies. They're a bit controversial from a legal perspective. So from the legal perspective, there's thought that a forced apology may violate the Charter rights, freedom of expression, as they restrict what an elected representative can state. Example, legitimate political expression. This has never been tested in court. However, does Renfrew want to be the first to have it tested in court? I think not. There has been, I want to use a case study up in Fort Francis. There was a municipal lawyer who is a councillor up there who was pretty much told that he was going to be forced to apology. And he pretty much said, if you force me to apologize, I will be taking this farther. So we have to be careful with that part of it. I think bottom line is we all know Revimo. I knew what the email meant. I laughed because I got it, but I can see where others might not get it in his wording. So I get that, and I like the fact, I don't like the fact, but I think the fact enough that it's here and it's out in the open, I think that's enough. So I'm happy with the outcome. I'm happy with the report, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier. I think this is an opportunity for all of council to recognize the level of professionalism that we need to have at this table and through emails and communication. And, you know, again, the public does get this and they will see it. So, yeah, I just want I want us to move forward and hopefully limit these, or let's not have another one. So I think that's on all of us to make sure we don't have that opportunity come up. So yeah, with that, if there's no more questions or comments, I'll read the revised motion again. The Renfrew Town Council receive Integrity Commissioner Tony Fleming's final report in reference to file number 31176-32 dated January 6, 2025 as information. We do have a mover and a seconder. If there's no more questions or comments, I'm going to ask for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you very much, Integrity Commissioner Fleming. We appreciate your time and your work on this. I know it's extensive work, and I know you had a busy day today, so we're going to let you go. So we appreciate
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate Council's understanding, but I would like to issue an apology to Council. It was poorly worded, and I will not inject any kind of humor into emails. You know, I think if you take a look at the email, you'll find that I was probably harder on myself than anybody else in what I said, but it was poorly worded. I take responsibility for it, and it wouldn't happen again, so thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to C.3, announcements and community events. Anybody have any announcements? Councilor McWhorter?
Thank you, Chair. I was asked to relay this on from Renfrew Home Senior Support. Would like to make it known that we have launched our annual Green Envelope campaign to attain donations in support of our organization's programs to support essential services for seniors and disabled adults in our area. Due to the Canada Post strike, our campaign was delayed, which made may make an impact on donations. Luckily, the Government of Canada has extended the allowance of charitable donation receipts for the tax claims for the 2024 tax year until February 28, 2025. As these envelopes enter our residents' mailboxes, we hope that the town of Renfrew will aid in promoting the legitimacy of this campaign and ensure that our residents understand the impact that these donations would make in supporting essential services for these vulnerable groups. Our goal is to ensure that our clients can continue to receive the assistance they need to live with dignity and independence. Your support in this initiative can make a real difference in the lives of those who need it most. We look forward to the town and our honorable council members' participation in our campaign to continue to help our community work together in its growth so that our community and its members can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Legree.
Through you, Mayor Sidney, I'd like to do just a little statement on our new CAO and a few of the staff that's helped us, if that's okay, or?
Sure.
Is this okay? So I'm pleased to announce that I know this went out in social media, but I don't think we've officially did it in council yet. So the appointment of Gloria Raybone as Chief Administration Officer effective January 6th. Gloria brings extensive experience in municipal public sector management. She began her career at a public accounting firm specialized in auditing municipalities and other public sector organizations, including school boards, First Nations, health units, Children's Aid Society, and public housing entities. After 13 years in the public auditing, Gloria transitioned to municipal administration, returning to her hometown of Tweed, Ontario as CAO/Treasurer in 2019. During her 5 years in Tweed, Gloria has successfully navigated challenges such as managing the impacts of COVID-19, addressing budgetary operational needs, and collaborating with neighboring municipalities on joint service boards. She holds an Honours Bachelor in Business Administration from Wilfrid Laurier University and is a Chartered Professional Accountant, CPA and CA. I, along with Council, would look forward to working with Gloria and welcoming her to the town of Renfrew. I also, at this time, would like to thank Kelly Latondras for stepping up into the acting CAO position last September. Even though you wear many hats, Kelly, within this organization, and with everything going on within the town, you stepped up to the challenge and delivered. Your strong leadership style and dedication to the town and its residents has been front and center through the last few months, and I have no doubt you will make the transition over to the new CAO streamless. With Ms. Latondra stepping up and taking on the CAO role, we had we had to move some of her normal workload to other staff members within the organization. With that said, I would like to quickly extend my sincere thank you from myself and Council to the following staff members. Maggie Murdoch. Maggie stepped up and took over the position of CAO of the library, and I'm on the library board, and I can say firsthand that she did a great job, so thanks, Maggie. I also want to thank Janine Fraser, Sean Eckford, and Glenn Charon for stepping up and taking turns as Acting Director of Recreation. All three of you did an amazing job, so thanks. I also want to acknowledge Jen Cormier, who has stepped up into the acting role of Manager of Engineering Asset Management when Andrea Bishop took over the role of Acting Public Works Director. So thank you to both of you. You also did great, so thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. I was going to say something at the end, so. No, it's all good. It's all good. All right, moving on to Committee of the Whole. That Renfrew Town Council convene a Committee of the Whole to consider reports for recommendations to Council. Mover, please. Councillor Legree, second by Councillor McDonald. All in favor? That's great. We are now in the Committee of the Whole, and we will move on to E.2.1, annual temporary borrowing. That the Committee of the Whole recommends that Renfrew Town Council authorize the borrowing of money from time to time to meet current operating capital expenditures for the year of 2025, and further that bylaw be brought forward to the January 28th Council meeting. Mover, please. Councillor McWhorter, second by Councillor Legree. I will now hand it over to Treasurer Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. So every year, the town has a borrowing bylaw that allows the town, the staff, between the treasurer and the mayor to borrow money if required through our local banks. This year, the amount that can be borrowed is based on estimated revenue as defined and interpreted in the Act of the municipality as set out in the estimates adopted for the current year and not collected or yet adopted. The amount of the estimated revenues of the municipality is set forth in the estimates adopted for the next preceding year, being 2024. So the total estimated revenue for 2024 was $30 million. So the maximum amount that can be borrowed, together with the amounts, if any, of borrowings that have not been repaid, cannot exceed that. I know the word aggregate, exceed, just to clarify that. So from January 1st to September 30th of the year, no more than 50% of the $30 million, and then from October 1st to December 31st, 25% of that. So there is no alternate options available. So it's important that council pass this each year, and we've done it as long as the town has been created. And what I would suggest is perhaps next year, instead of doing going by estimated revenue, that we just do a flat $10 million because for the full year, because that's more than enough. In the past, we have not had to enter into any arrangements with regards to additional borrowing for operating, which I'm happy to say. So we also have a demand loan with BMO for $1 million in the event that the operating goes into the negative, and again, we have not had to utilize that. So if there's any questions from council.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess I've noticed that we haven't used it, and it's a precautionary move that we take. We haven't used it since 2011. But if we do use it, what are the plans for payback, and like, do we make sure it's done within the calendar year? I'm just looking for that information.
Treasurer?
So typically, it would be paid back month to month moving forward. It's not like a debenture where we have 2 payments a year or 1 payment a year. It would be a month-to-month payment similar to a mortgage. And this is just for emergency purposes. Every other borrowing we've done through a debenture purpose, but you can't take out a debenture to cover overextending our operating bank. So this is just in that event, or an emergency situation.
Any other questions? Councillor McWhorter?
Through you, Chair. So, Treasurer, does this affect our borrowing capacity if when we go to do the debenture at all?
Treasurer?
No, it does not. So if you took it out, then yes, it would. But just because we have the ability to borrow does not affect your annual repayment limit at all.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. On to interim tax levy. That the Committee of the Whole, hang on, sorry. That the Committee of the Whole recommends Renfrew Town Council approve the establishment of an interim tax levy and the authorization of the payment of taxes as well as penalty and interest charges for non-payment of taxes or any installment by the due date, and to bring forward a bylaw for January 28th council meeting. Mover, please. Councillor Porter, seconded by Councillor Legree, and I will turn it back over to the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. This is every year, the municipality, according to Section 317 of the Municipal Act, may pass a bylaw to levy interim taxes, which is based on 50% of the previous final billing to our ratepayers. This year, we'll be billing again at 50% with 2 due dates for the interim billing, and that's due in the end of March and the end of May. And then once we pass our final budget and have final tax bills go out, that will be due in August and October. This bylaw that will come forward at the next meeting also addresses penalty and interest charges at our current rate, which is 15% per year or 1.25% per month, which is the maximum interest charge and penalty charges that we can do according to Section 345 of the Act. If there's any questions?
Any questions from council? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. On to E.2.3, the 2025 OPP cost update with yearly comparisons. That the Committee of the Whole recommends the Renfrew Town Council accept the 2025 OPP cost update with yearly comparisons as information. Mover, please. Councillor Andrew Dick, second by Councillor Legree, and I'll turn it back over to the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. So this, I just wanted to bring forward because there has been so much talk with regards to the OPP costing across the province. We did get an updated estimate for 2025 with overall with a discount, which is greatly appreciated. And then I just wanted to compare year over year with regards to what it has cost us in the past, because our trend has, gone from in 2019 at 189.54 as an example as the base service cost per property to 189.44. So we're actually lower even with this overall increase than we were in 2019. So we've kind of gone down, now we're going back up, and hopefully it doesn't continue on. As well as call for services per property, that certainly has gone up. Overtime per property comparison, that has increased over time, and I think that is reflective of staff not being available for whatever reason, being in court, and therefore causing overtime to other constables to be filling in for them on the road. Prisoner transportation per property comparison, so that's when any prisoners that are attending court because of charges related to the town of Renfrew has gone down over time. It's not as low as it has been in the past, but at 19 we were at $2.27 per property. Now we're at $1.87, so that's a good sign. Accommodation cleaning per property comparison, we're in 2019 we were at $4.90, now we're up to $5.70, and that's consistent with an increase over time for salaries and wages and costs for supplying cleaning and everything else that is regards to the office of the OPP. Graph 6 outlines the OPP totals per year with a percentage change. So we do see that we are going down, and that's the biggest reason is because of the actual discount, which again is much appreciated. The other thing that I didn't include in the graphs, is the fact that we should be getting an additional credit to the town of Renfrew in the amount of $462,520. There was reference to that on the original billing estimate for 2025, and this is due to a discrepancy that was found during an audit of grant-related invoices. So just to explain a little bit further, so some of those officers were being double billed to the town as if we had two people doing the same job. So once they realized that, they've credited us with those costs since the inception of those grants. And I anticipate, and I will certainly let council know if we haven't received that credit. So I'm hoping as well. So if we receive that credit, our actual costs in 2025 are going to go down significantly for this year. And I should see that no later than March. And the reason why, even though it said in January in our original estimate, we don't get the January billing until March. Either that, or they're going to do it with the October, October billing or November billing in the month of January, but I have yet to see that credit come through, so I'm anticipating that they mean the 2025 billing for the month of January, which typically comes out in March. Is there
Any questions?
any questions?
Councillor Legree.
Through you, Mayor Sidney, and I apologize, it's probably in the report, I just can't find it now. Can you give me the totals, if you have it, for 2024 compared to 2025 after the discount has been applied? Like the billing amounts?
Yep.
Sorry.
The actual totals, I'll just bring up the OPP, see if I have it. And I'm sorry I did not include that. Just do a quick search. No. Why it's not coming up? No. Sorry, I was in a formula in another in another spreadsheet. So the total, so in 2024, we budgeted 1.8 million, and in 2025, the original, before the discount, was just almost 2.1 million, with a discount of 342,000, leaves us at 1.7 million. 1.7.5 million. So if we get the additional allocation of 400 and some thousand, we'll be down to 1.3 million for OPP costs. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't get too excited, because if they don't give us a discount in 2026, the possibility of going up to 2.1 again is very real, in my opinion, unless the province decides to give a discount every year. So.
Councillor Legree.
So I'll hear what everybody else has to say, but I think I want to put a motion to maybe take the 342,216 and split it between the 25 and 26 years. So half of that, is that possible? Half that discount applies to 25, half will apply to 26. Because I'm assuming this is a one-time thing. They're not going to, I agree with you, they're not going to come back in 2026 and say, here's another discount off it. And this will help us gradually work the increases into the budget with less impact to residents. So I'll hear what everybody else has to say, but I will put that motion on the floor.
Just before we go back, the CAO, actually we were talking about this today, so I'm just going to hand it to the CAO for a minute.
So through the mayor to all of council, this is something that a lot of municipalities across the province are actually doing. I am aware of about approximately 100 municipalities already in Ontario who have either passed that motion already to put 50% into a reserve and to bring it out in 2026, or ones that have that on the table already built into their budget and expecting that to pass. So that is what a lot of places are doing, because most of us are expecting that it is a one-time relief. And so yes, you may not have to do the increase this year, but pretty certain you are probably going to be seeing it in 26. So spreading that out does help the residents not have to swallow it all at once. And that is what a lot of municipalities are doing in Ontario.
Treasurer?
My recommendation is, yes, that could be a possibility, and that we should look at it at budget time, whether or not we need to reduce the overall tax levy at that time by the full discount or by half the discount. I think that could play a number of advantages with keeping the tax levy increase low this year, and by spreading it out over 2 years, it may not be as of benefit. It could be, but my recommendation is to take a look at it at budget time with that recommendation sitting there, but not move forward with that necessarily recommendation at this time. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So you're good to wait for budget?
Yeah, we'll wait to budget and then we'll go from there. Thanks.
Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney, and through you. If Councillor agrees okay, I'm okay with waiting too. So I was going to make a comment, but then we're all good now. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments with this? Councillor McWhorter.
You, Chair, for the Treasurer. So I'm looking at this report, and there's lots of talk here about accommodation, cleaning services, properties, etc., sharing of uniform members' expenses and all that. So what I'm getting to is we have the facilities in our town limits, although it is on Renfrew County property, and I'm not sure we get much in taxes for that, but thank you, Renfrew County. I was never in favor of that, so I'm just going to have my 2 cents. I'm just wondering, is this, so that building, is that paid by, like the expense of the building paid strictly by the Renfrew taxpayers, or is it shared? And maybe if you can answer, Treasurer Jackson, maybe Revimo would be able to answer that. I'm just wondering.
So that the revenue and the expenses would be shared through the Renfrew County budget, is my understanding. Any revenue gained and any costs associated with maintaining that property would be through the Renfrew County levy.
Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. E.2.4, 2025 South Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board Budget. That the Committee of the Whole recommends that Renfrew Town Council adopt the 2025 South Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board budget at the amount of $114,644, and further, the Council confirms its responsibility under the Act to pay the OPP Detachment Board an equal share in the amount of $16,377.71. Mover, please. Councillor Degree, seconded by Councillor McDonald. And I will turn it back over to the Treasurer.
Thank you. So as you know, this is the board, the what is now called the South Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board, as it takes in a number of municipalities that are adjoining the town of Renfrew. So the proposed 2025 budget for the Renfrew, we didn't change that, for the South Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board has been adopted by all other municipalities in the amount of $114,644. The town's portion for 2025 will be $16,377.71. This is an overall savings to the town of $15,224.29, or 48.18% less than the 2024 budget. As most people know, the Police Services Board was just for the town of Renfrew in prior years, so we budgeted all the costs associated with that board to the town, and now it's being shared across all the municipalities, and it is, according to regulation, it is allowing us to share equally, so every municipality pays the same amount moving forward for the board.
Any questions? Revimo?
Thank you. When I look at the budget, and I just have a question, what does MERCS mean under program? It says MERCS at 30%, and it's at $9,300, and that's, I just don't know what that means.
Yeah.
That would be the mandatory employees deduction.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to reiterate to the public, because I know they're going to hear the first number of $114,644. That is the total budget for the entire thing. Renfrew's is only $16,377.71. So I just want to make sure that we don't stop at the first number. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to Infrastructure, Engineering, and Public Works. Salt Management Plan. that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council adopt a new salt management plan, SMP, that will be updated as required by Environment Canada Code of Practice for Environmental Management of Road Salts, or applicable legislation, and further that the Council endorse identified in the plan to be passed at the January 28, 2025 Council meeting. Mover, please. Councilor McWhorter, second by Councilor Legree. And before I turn it over to Acting Director Collins, I just want to say welcome back. It's great to see you. So I will now hand it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the salt management plan, the last one the town had done in its completeness was in 2008. We've updated it significantly. It is a living document, the way it's set up. So there is an annual reporting required by Environment Canada. This is a federal legislation, not a provincial. We have continued to do our annual reporting. It's done through Public Works. However, we will continue to do our review of the plan in itself. A copy of the plan is attached for your information. Just a couple of other items on the actual report. We did adopt minimum maintenance standards. That is included within the plan, but I do want to point out minimum maintenance standards is provincial legislation. Again, salt management is federal. And as to the last in discussions, we do include the quantity of salt in it. It may or may not be updated annually. However, the actual reports are not included within the plan. We could do that at a future date if we so wish. It's kind of a fill-in-the-blank government form, if you can imagine what it looks like. Never prints easily. Anyways, with regards to the salt management plan, it has updated significantly. I just want to note a few items. Section 4, we actually state what the plan requires to have in it. That is from the Code of Practice. A couple of other items I wanted to point out was section 8.6. This is something that might be beneficial to council staff alike, and it is actually our facilities. So in going through this plan, we had quite a number of facilities that didn't have civic addressing. So this has forced us to look at all the facilities that we do winter maintenance on, and we now have civic addresses for them, as well as the pins are actually out on site. And that could be anything down to some of our pumping stations. So when we do a project, we try and use it for numerous other projects, and that will be used within the water wastewater jurisdiction as well. So it has been beneficial that way. Another item I wanted to point out is section 12 is recommendations. Since I have done this one, I've gone ahead and put some recommendations in it. Most of them have either come from past products that we've had associated with the salt management plan and or the requirements of the code of conduct, etc. And each year as Public Works review team goes through it, they can take some of these and continue to update the plan. By updating the plan, you're also updating your reporting, which is a requirement of Environment Canada. So within it you can see an annual management review. We actually have a procedure on doing that now, which again was one of the legal requirements. So I don't want to get into anything further. There's a lot of information in it. I was just trying to get across that it is a living document. The annual management review requires staff to report to council on changes. Does not necessarily mean that you will be required to adopt a new plan. It is a living plan. What you are required to adopt will be coming forward at the next council meeting, and that is endorsing the plan. So you will see that at the next meeting.
Any questions? Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney, and through you, I'd like to also welcome Acting Director Collins back. It's good to see her around the table. The comment I'm going to make, it has no bearing on this report. However, I do have a small concern that we are talking about salt usage in the town of Renfrew, and there's no recommendation, no letter, nothing from our environmental manager here at the town of Renfrew. I'd feel, again, I don't have any judgment on the report that's in front of me. However, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if our manager of environment threw her 2 cents into this report, and possibly I would like to hear from her regarding this new policy or this report that we're going to adopt in 2 weeks. I will pass it on tonight for council in 2 weeks. However, I would, Mr. Mayor, ask that possibly staff could have the manager of environment throw her 2 cents in on this before I vote on it in 2 weeks. Again, that's up to staff's discretion if they wish to do that, though. Thank you.
Turn it back over to Ms. Collins.
Just to speak to that briefly, I think that's a fabulous idea. I think the key being a living document, that when they do the annual management review, it would be fabulous to have the environmental technologist engineer in on this. Just for information purposes, 99% of the document is operational, so it's the plows, the number of hours worked, where they're putting salt down, our spreaders, the quantity that they put out at the speeds they put out. So most of it is operational. However, again, when they do the annual review, fabulous person to have at the table. One of the requirements is to look at new technologies, etc. Again, most of it's operational. Great person to have there.
Any other questions from council? Comments? Revimo?
Just bring your attention to item 8.2, I think it is. Just give me a second. Yeah, 8.6, and it says winter maintenance facilities, and it mentions 550 Hall. So does it do the parking lot at 550 Hall, or is it just the roadway past it that's Les Fraser?
I believe at the time we were looking at it and it appeared that the roadway was included. I will verify that and we can make any changes. Again, living documents, it can be updated. I do know I had included a property sketch in here that I found after that time, so we'll verify that before next week.
Okay, thank you. And then item 8.4, you've got the Algonquin Trail and the Millennium Trail ownership flipped.
Yes, we've included them in as infrastructure. The Millennium is the counties.
No.
I've got them backwards.
Yes, yeah.
We will make sure we make that correction as well. My apologies.
I noted that. Okay, that's all I had to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to overview of public works and operations. That Committee of the Whole received the overview of Public Works Operations report as information. Mover, please. Councillor Legree, seconded by Councillor Sobalski, and I'll turn it over to Director Bishop.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So in my new role, I just wanted to try to get an understanding of our Public Works operations, and over the past few months I've been able to connect with our Public Works staff and get a better idea of what is going on our roads and throughout our town dealing with our infrastructure. So in recent years, there have been some staffing changes and resource changes going to Aqua being one, and then just some reducing the number of staff that are actually out there on our roads. So this is leading to a shift in priorities in our Public Works Department. So we have a smaller workforce than we used to, so the current staff have had to focus more on maintenance than construction. So our Public Works team has prioritized maintenance tasks and the upkeep and repair of existing infrastructure to prevent the further deterioration of our roads and sidewalks and extend the lifespan so that those last longer. So this includes the maintenance of roads, sidewalks, storm sewer systems, and public spaces. Just to note that they did used to include water and sewer, but that has been contracted out to Aqua, but Public Works still does do storm sewers and culverts throughout the town, including public spaces. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. So the town remains committed to maintaining infrastructure throughout the town and ensure public safety, but in regard to any repairs that go beyond, such as sidewalk replacements, we don't have currently the staff and resources to do those repairs. So I know this has been brought up before at council and considered, but I think Director Collins and I might be able to work on a sidewalks report to get to council before she officially retires, maybe. But we currently do have a lot of sidewalks in town that are in bad shape and are requiring further repairs or replacements. But I just want to point out that our staffing and resources right now, we can't take on those tasks. So I just want to also note that certain staff members in our garage have responsibilities that they take on themselves, such as our town mechanic. So he's not really available to be helping with a maintenance or construction task. I've included a detailed listing of tasks included in Appendix A. So I'm not going to go through everything, but there is quite an extensive list broken down by season and frequency. So many things are on an as-needed basis, many things are daily, and then a lot in the winter especially are weather dependent. So if you have any questions on that later, we can go through that. And then I just wanted to point out that recently, due to these staffing changes, we have also had some additional work. So one being snow picking at the back of the MyFM Center. To note, after this weekend there was a tournament on, and with 2 operational ice pads there was a lot of snow back there. So our staff have to go and pick that snow so that we can actually use that road and residents can get around there. So that's an additional thing that comes up with the 2 ice pads, and we can look at snow storage another time, but our staff does assist with that. With the staff shortages at the landfill as well, our public works staff has been generous enough to go and help out with that. And then as the town develops, we have new roads and sidewalks to maintain. There's additional, some shared and maybe, I don't know if additional, but grass cutting and horticulture. That was also added to the public works portfolio. And then trails is also joint with Parks and Recreation. So there is a lot of work that Public Works does do, and I really appreciate all the hard work that they do in maintaining the town. And as is right now, everything is maintenance focused, and in the future we can consider perhaps if we want to go the construction sidewalk replacement kind of route, then additional staff will likely be required.
Any questions? Councillor Legree?
Through you, Mayor Sidney, to Director Bishop. So thank you for putting this list together. Actually, it gives council, especially me, a better understanding of what the team does out at the garage. I just have a question with the list, actually. The water meter installations, it says that you do them all year, which I get, but 2 per week on average. Does that mean we install, I don't understand that, install 2 water meters every week? So 100 and some a year?
Yes, we likely do. Some would be breaking, especially with the years where we'll be starting to look at capital projects to replace those on larger quantities moving forward, as well as any new builds. Something else I just want to add to Director Bishop is when you're looking at this list, it's very comprehensive, but each of those items also have numerous items within them. So as example, she has guardrails. Well, that's gravel, shoulder drop-offs, it's weed trimming, it's washouts, it's replacement of any damage. Again, I believe there was vehicle inspections. It says monthly. Well, they also have daily walkabouts. They have the monthly. They have their annual CVOR. So each of these can be broken down further. So just so that you are aware, I mean, to try and write them everything, you just couldn't do it. So.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Dick?
Thank you, Mayor Sidney, and through you. I liked this, and I liked Acting Director Bishop's comments when she said, she was honest, and she said, we'll do it, We'll look at it another time because right now the focus isn't there. One of the things I did like the snow storage out there, to have Public Works going out there and removing that snow when we probably can store it somewhere else. I like that when she said we're going to look at that, so I like that. Also, I've sent, now that we're on this topic, and I'm going to bring it out into a public forum, I've sent numerous emails over the last 2 years asking for how many kilometers of roads we have in Renfrew, how many kilometers of roads have we paved in the last 5 years, how many kilometers of roads. I've asked for a breakdown of this, and I have emailed numerous staff on this over the last 2.5 years, and I've yet to get an answer. I'm really hoping we can have that information before budget talks so council can have a deep understanding of how many roads we have to we need to know this information before budget talks. So just throwing it out in the public with a smile on my face, hoping we can get that information. I know Councillor Grease asked for this a few times also, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Cebulski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just, I guess, a few comments. I appreciate the report, and I appreciate the consideration of what construction projects need to get done and what we do and don't have the staff for, and I know that maintenance is #1 priority at all costs. We have to make sure things are maintained and staying safe. And as far as construction projects go, when the information comes in on the sidewalks, I believe that we should have a wholesome talk then about what construction projects are and what's needed and different ways to tackle it, whether it's going out for RFP for contract or whether we bring in hypothetically seasonal workers to be sole contract construction workers for the town of Renfrew to do these things, and with a layoff season, so it could be a different way of looking at stuff, hypothetically, just spitballing, but I'm happy with keeping things as status quo right now for staying on top of maintenance, at least at this time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor McWhorter.
You, Chair, for Director Bishop. You mentioned staff, a shortage of staff, and I'm just wondering, I'm a little confused here. We had Aqua take over some of the work that town staff were doing, and then in turn, they hired those staff, so we lost them, but they're not required because they're already doing the job for Aqua. What other staff would you be talking about that we lost and never replaced, or?
Yep, I understand that. So the staff members that went to Aqua, they did go for water and sewer purposes, but that's not all they were doing for the town. So they also were assisting in the day-to-day maintenance tasks. So there were certain staff that did water and sewer, and then they kind of like were pulled out and specialized for Aqua. But we are kind of missing their skills within the town. And then just kind of a couple other changes that went on recently. And then, yeah, we did hire 2 term operators, but only one has stayed with us. So we're okay right now, but there have been a lot of changes.
Any other questions? Vimo?
Thank you, and I just was looking real quickly. I think you might be missing one of the tasks, and that's driving the honey wagon from the sewage treatment plant to the waste site. I didn't see that in there. Yeah, and that's a weekly thing, sir. Yeah. And so the other piece is when I see hot tar and patching, I understood that we bought a boiler that would allow us to do some larger patching. And I don't know, is that something that we're doing, or was that boiler not quite the right piece of equipment?
If I may, I believe it's the box that they're using. They have to pick up the hot mix, put it in it, and it maintains that temperature as they patch. I don't believe we have anything particular for large size patches. Any large patches, we throughout the year gather the locations and then we contract somebody to come in. They used to just use cold patch, which doesn't tend to do as good a job. So once they bought the hot box, then they were able to do hot patches, which stay much better. I know when they first purchased it, we weren't using it to its full extent. I know starting last summer that they were using it extensively and going down and purchasing hot mix.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to the Office of the CAO and Town Clerk. That the Committee of the Whole recommends that Renfrew Town Council direct Downtown Renfrew Business Improvement Area Board to seek interested individuals from their current membership supported with a vote by the members before bringing the name to council for appointment by bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor Degree, seconded by Councillor McDonald, and I'll turn it over to the CAO.
So in my report before you, you do see that we did receive a individual who resigned from the board, and so we now have a vacancy in that. Under the Municipal Act, we have several options that we could look at. We could either just appoint someone, as you have the right to actually determine how many members should be on it. You could always look at reducing the members. However, then you run risks of possibly having balanced votes, which too many ties in a row, you don't actually end up getting a lot of activity actually completed, which is why most boards are set up with an odd number of people. Or the board could provide or could vote towards who they would like to be in, and council could appoint that. Being that it's midterm, it would probably be best that we do fill that position, and it probably would be best to allow the board to find someone who's in their current membership to fill that. The Municipal Act does permit, when it's a vacancy midterm, that we could appoint someone who's not actually an actual member of the BIA in any way. However, I believe it'd be important for that organization that they have people who are invested on that board.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney, and through you. So first off, it's nice to see that actually the board members showed up for this vote tonight. It's nice to see on a Tuesday night they trekked out. My question, Mr. Mayor, is what has the board of directors, what are their thoughts? What would they like to see happen? We have we have your recommendation, Mr. Mayor. We have a recommendation from our CAO, and then we have 3 alternates. So I would be curious. I believe we have some council members on the board. If I could get their thoughts on what the board would like to see happen. Thank you.
Councillor Degree.
Through you, Mayor Sidney. So I agree with the CAO. I don't think council should just pick somebody and appoint them. I think that it should go back to the Downtown Renfrew BIA board to seek individuals. That's part of our membership now. Like, they know who's interested and who wants to be part of it, and then once they select that person, it'll come back to council for final approval. But I think that should be left with the board. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney. And just to confirm to the public, Councillor Degree is on the board of directors with the BIA? Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, council. Moving on to E.6.2, corporate sponsorship and advertising policy amendment. That the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council approve an amendment to the delegation of authority section of the corporate sponsorship and advertising policy to increase the maximum threshold for sponsorships and advertising agreements authorized by directors and or their designates from 1,000 to 5,000. Mover, please. Councillor Degree, seconded by Councillor McDonald, and I will turn it over to Coordinator McMillan.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as mentioned in your report, we're just looking for a slight amendment to the sponsorship and advertising policy to change the delegation of authority from 1,000 to 5,000. This basically just means that staff will be able to accept sponsorship coming to the town, providing it meets our policy, of course, up to 5,000 instead of 1,000. As we've been enacting this policy, we've just outlined some issues where $1,000 is just quite a low number, and having to come to council for approval on everything over 1,000 could really hinder us accepting sponsorship, which we really don't want to do, especially as we do have corporations and businesses who do come on last minute to be sponsors. And if there's no council meeting happening before that event, we would either have to turn them down or call a special council meeting, and providing that would give us enough time to approve that. So we're hoping that council would see fit to do that.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, this is to receive $5,000.
Yes, this is correct. This is this does not affect any budgetary constraints. This is just accepting sponsorship for our signature events that we host here at the town.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney. So just to confirm, this policy is not, if I want, I'm going to use an example because I own a few businesses in town. This isn't a policy where if I want to buy a sign that goes out at Mattaway or a sign to go on a ballpark or a soccer field. This is for our signature events such as the beer festival where I might want to have my name involved. Am I correct on that, Mr. Mayor?
That's my take on it, yes.
All right, thank you. And the next question I have, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, and you can shut me down if it's not. When someone donates $5,000 to a festival, Santa Claus parade, or what it might be, Mr. Mayor, where does that money go? Thank you.
Treasurer, you know the proper.
Yeah, so that money would go directly to, if they're sponsoring, they're donating directly to an event, then that would go directly to an event, and they'd also get a tax receipt for that donation.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that answer. So the next question is if we just say, for argument's sake, the Santa Claus parade, we get 4 donors that donate $5,000. That is now $20,000 we have in the kitty. And the Santa Claus parade only cost the town of Renfrew $12,000. Would that $8,000 stay in the kitty for the next year for the Santa Claus parade? Or does that $8,000 go towards just into the bank account? Just curiosity's sake. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you want?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So generally when we do them, it goes in with an amount that we require. So we don't go in for more than, we identify what's needed, and then we'll lay out what, the monies that are needed, so we don't take extra.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a gold, platinum, bronze, type thing. Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. On to E.6.3, marriage license modernization. That the Committee of the Whole receive the Service Ontario Marriage License Modernization Report as information. Mover, please. Councillor Legree, seconded by Councillor McWhirter, and I will turn it over to Deputy Clerk Wright.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sidney. The Clerk's Department has been working towards implementing the Ministry of Public and Business Service, or Service Ontario, their new marriage license modernization, which is an online marriage license registration platform. This initiative aims to digitalize and streamline Ontario's marriage license application and issuance process. The program has been rolled out already in phases with 35 municipalities already participating, and the town of Renfrew is scheduled to transition to this digital platform on February 3rd of this year, 2025. Benefits will include shorter in-person visits, fewer errors, standardized processes, an increased level of service, and an improved user experience for applicants. The new program is designed to complement and not replace the current application process, as municipalities are still required to concurrently manage both online as well as paper applications to ensure inclusivity and maintain accessibility for all of our residents.
Any questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. We are now going to adjourn the Committee of the Whole. That Renfrew Town Council rise from Committee of the Whole. Mover, please. Councillor Legree, seconded by Councillor Sobalski. Any questions on this? All in favor? We are now at a Committee of the Whole at 6:59. Moving on to external boards and county reports. Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting minutes of September 10th, 2024 and October 8th, 2024. This is for information. If Councillor Sobolski, you want to?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Through you, Mayor. I won't speak long to it. It's we're into this a few meetings now, and each meeting we tend to get a little bit more in depth. We tend to grow a little bit. We are continuing to understand what our wants are from all the members and what we're chasing. We've had great discussions with Warden Emo, and we've brought in business development managers from the Renfrew County, which is just currently, but continue to follow, continue to watch online. It's a great meeting, and we're continuing to grow, and if there's any input that's wanted to be added to it, we're always open ears. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to F.2, Downtown Renfrew BIA meeting minutes of November 11th, 2024. There's actually a motion for this. The Renfrew Town Council accept the minutes for the Downtown Renfrew BIA for November 11th, 2024. Mover, please. Councillor Legree, seconded by Councillor McWhirter. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing no questions, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to F.3. County of Renfrew letter to Minister Sakaria regarding Highway 17 information. I don't know, Marie Bimo, if you wanted to touch on this.
Yeah, thank you. A letter to express our frustration with the minister, given that we keep hearing about the need for highways in Toronto region, and not debating that, and also the uploading of the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardiner. Again, not debating it. And I think, as we pointed out, we've been waiting quite patiently over the years. So we made a presentation in April, followed it up in August, with which we talked about continuing with the expansion of 417 from where it ends at Shield Drive now to straight underneath the interchange at Calabogie and McLean, and ending, we thought, at Miller, and blocking off Miller and attaching it over to as a service road on to McLean, or that area, following their plan. It makes sense, and it shows good faith. We also had talked to them about the need for changing some of the traffic patterns in the Meath Hill, which is just outside of Pembroke, through to Deep River, using roundabouts, and provided some examples instead of lights to keep traffic moving, as well as the 2+1 traffic model, which is being tested in a pilot project on, I believe, on Highway 11 near Saugeen Shores, with the understanding that we thought there were some areas in that section of Highway 17 where it would be beneficial. What we did is we took a look at the numbers, and the high density numbers are at Calabogie, the exit and entrance, and we're grateful for the overpass and the on and off ramp, and then also between Pembroke and Deep River during most work days, between 6 in the morning until about 8, and then again from about 4 o'clock until about 6 o'clock. So we were just expressing our frustration to the minister, and we had asked and offered him some dates, and we were prepared to get to Toronto and see him. We haven't had a response back. So as soon as Roma's over, we'll start the process again and remind the minister every month that we're available. So we're not giving up on it. We're also going to likely start a Highway 417 awareness program, where we get out and promote the issue that we've been patient enough and it's time for them to act. And so, as you can see from the letter, there's lots of instances where they haven't provided in any of their build documentation that Highway 417 is on their radar, despite their many assurances. So we'll keep you posted and probably ask for support. Thank you.
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Renfrew Power Generation Quarterly Summary, October to December 2024. Information. Councillor Legree.
through you, Mayor Sidney. So I'll just touch on this very quickly. So the Q4 summary is from October 1st to December 31st. Generation was above target, which is good. Q4 had average flows due to the drawdown and the milder weather, including rain. The Golden Lake Dam Rehab Project has now been completed. RPG is pleased with the results and will be doing project close-off once we receive the final invoices. The board is continuing to lobby with the government for a better payment mechanism to secure RPG's future. Both operations manager Sean Cameron and board director Leo Hall has been lead on this, and I thank them both for their commitment in helping secure a positive financial future for RPG. And I also sit on the board with Councillor Andrew Dick, so that's it.
Thank you. Moving on to G, confirmation of minutes. The Renfrew Town Council confirmed the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated December 10th, 2024, and the special meeting of council dated December 20th, 2024, as well as the closed meeting minutes of December 10th, 2024, and December 20th, 2024, understanding that they remain confidential. Mover, please. Councillor McWhirter, second by Councillor Legree. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to communications and petitions. From H.1 to H.5, does anybody have anything they would like to speak on, or anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? Rebimo?
H.1 comes at a very fortuitous time. I met with Minister Calandra for a few minutes on Friday this past week, and he was quite clear in expressing his desire for more harmonization between municipalities in regions, and suggested that he would like to see, and his staff would like to see, and he thought the public would like to see, that a dwelling is a dwelling no matter what municipality you're in, and that a fourplex is a fourplex. So he would like us to speak with our neighbors, you know, depending on our sphere of influence in business, to ensure that we have the same terms for our official plan and for our zoning bylaws. And I assured him that most of the plans around our area were fairly consistent, given that they all have to fit in underneath, for the most part, with the exception of the town of Renfrew, the County of Renfrew official plan, and there's a lot of similarity between the two. I think also, you know, he was suggesting there should be similarities through sharing, likely, between the CBOs, the building officials, and fire regulations. So he was quite forceful in his language, and we had some conversations about encampments as well, and again was quite direct in saying funding that's used for transitional housing has to meet the needs of people who are in encampments and end encampments. So it was a good conversation. He's always been very direct with me, and so it was useful information.
Great, thank you. Councilor McWhirter?
Chair for review. Was there any discussion about reducing the lot size needed to build a home? Thinking of some of the municipalities around our area that require a full acre, and you could easily build 2 homes on half that, like an acre, half an acre each. Is there any discussion on that?
Yes, in very general terms. He has been a very strong advocate for communal systems in rural communities. So we think we're making pretty good progress with him in terms of municipal service corporations to look after the communal systems. And should that happen, then you'll see the average lot sizes shrink. Yeah, so he's aware of them, asked a lot of questions about them. We briefed him, I'll say conservatively, 3-4 times, and his staff, I think, you know, at least 6 times this past year, and probably in 2024, and I think more than that, 2023. So as we go through the process, and I say we, it's the municipal sector, one of the struggles is that the Ministry of Red Tape Reduction, whatever that is, hasn't quite met that challenge yet at the Ministry of Environment, because you have the Ministry of Environment regulations, and then Eric, you're going to have to help me. There's the other one. Is the water?
Yeah, the MOE would drive the lot size requirements with respect to nitrate impact.
Yeah, and then,
primarily.
and then there's the other. There's two of them being administered by the Ministry of Environment, and they don't have the same criteria. Yeah. So that's one of the issues we've talked about.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, moving on to H.6. The Renfrew Town Council directs staff to execute a letter of support to the federal and provincial government requesting meaningful improvements to the current state of catch and release justice in the Ontario legal system. Mover, please. Councillor McWhorter, second by Councillor Degree. Anybody want to comment? Revimo?
Well, I understand the sentiment and agree with it. I'm not. Is catch and release actually a policy, or is that just a local name that's attached to it? So I would much rather, if we had a motion that says that there should be, a review and a tightening of sentencing and admission to either parole and or probation as opposed to catch and release, because I think were I the minister and I happen to see it come in and say, oh, catch and release, I'd be file 6, because I don't think, maybe they wanted to talk to the Minister of Natural Resources for catch and release. And so, I think it's a little too flip for me. But I understand the sentiment and agree, but I think it has to be rewarded.
Okay. Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney, and I'd like to echo Revimo's. When I first saw it, that's exactly what I thought it was catch and release fish. I think it's a very unprofessional comment. I think they're taking from a certain individual who's running for Prime Minister who's been using this in his campaign. Yeah, I agree with what Revimo said, and you know what, I think it should be better put before I support this one. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my understanding, I think it was kind of a term that people that are doing this letter are phrasing it, but if there is a different word we can use.
Respectfully, could I suggest we table it and have staff put together a motion that better reflects our view, which there has similar sentiments, but a little more professionally worded.
Okay. We'll just table that. Moving on to the letter of support, request for assessment cycle to resume. The Renfrew Town Council directs staff to execute a letter of support to the Premier to promptly resume the assessment cycle to ensure the stability and predictability of property taxes while the government conducts its review of the property assessment and taxation system, or respond with an alternative method for every municipality in Ontario to achieve fair taxation. Mover, please. Councillor Sobalski, second by Councillor McWhorter. Any questions or Revimo?
Sorry. Again, I think what has to be stressed is that the discomfort this is going to cause ratepayers in 2 or 3 years when it's completed, because the total amount of taxation isn't going to change. However, it's going to shift around, and for me to run out and find 5 comparators or whatever the number is, and then make my case to MPAC and have it changed, and if you need a hearing, I think it's only going to get worse because the longer it goes, because right now we're still on 2016 evaluations that were adjusted up to 2020. So in essence, we're 8 years behind right now. And it just makes sense to get on with it. Otherwise, it's going to be the same mess it was when MPAC first was formed in 1996 or 1998, because at that point, evaluations hadn't changed for a number of years.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Acknowledgement to endorse and adopt weight cost sharing for the Renfrew Detachment Police Services Board, which is now the South Ottawa Valley Police Services Board. So it says the Renfrew Town Council received as information Township of Admast and Bromley's request to endorse and adopt a weighted cost share allocation by property counts similar to the OPP billing model for the distribution of the OPP Detachment Board expenses. Mover, please. Revimo. Councillor Sobalski. questions on this? Councillor Degree?
It's quiet, so I'll step in here, see what I can do. So just so council understands this, so we just passed the police services budget for 2025, which was roughly $114,644. Right now, the way it's done with the government is automatically it's shared. So out of the Renfrew detachment, the police respond to 7 municipalities, including Renfrew. So it's Arnprior, Renfrew, Admaston, Greater Mad, Horton, McNabb, Braeside, and Whitewater. So they take the total budget for the year and they divide that into 7. So all the 7 municipalities for 2025 will be paying $16,377.71. For some of the municipalities that went down, so Renfrew and Arnprior we're doing a savings, I think it was 18%, I believe. And Arnprior, I don't know what the savings is, but they're also going down. And then there's a couple of municipalities that's kind of teetering, it doesn't really matter which way they go. And then there is 2 of them, which would be Admaston, Bromley, and Horton, that it's a major increase. So what Mayor Donoghue from Admaston is requesting here is that instead of doing a shared, the cost shared amongst the 7 municipalities, it's kind of like the police billing is now. It goes into how many households you have. So I'll give you an example of Renfrew now. So this year we're paying $16,377, but if we went per household, the bill would go to $21,848. I'm looking at the treasurer, make sure I'm not going off track here. So this would kind of level out the playing field a little more, so we would be paying more. But for the smaller municipalities that don't have the properties and the taxes, right now they're looking at a fairly big increase. So that's kind of what the ask is here.
Treasurer?
I think the reason why it says shared responsibility across the board is due to the fact that every municipality has the same amount of votes. So each municipality has like 1 vote, or how many is on that represent on the board. If council was considering adopting a weighted cost share, I would suggest that maybe we do a weighted voting share as well, similar to what happens in the county structure, that it's weighted, so that if it's going to be affected by property, then counts, then obviously Arnprior and Renfrew would have the most votes at the board level, which really doesn't help out with Admaston, Bromley, or Horton, but it would make it more fair according to per property counts. That's how I would suggest it be put forward, but right now as it is, everybody pays equal shares because everybody has equal amount of say at the board level.
Councillor Degree?
Sorry, through you, Mayor Sidney. Yeah, I agree with the treasurer. So right now we all have equal say. There's, and I represent Renfrew on the Police Services Board. Each municipality, like the treasurer said, has a representative on there. I would like to actually pull this one and vote on it separately if possible, because I know there is talk. This is all new, obviously. It just kind of came into place in April of 2024, so we're not even a full year into it. And I know there is talk at the ministry now of looking at it for 2026 and seeing if they should do it differently. So I think there could be some changes there anyway, so I'd like to vote on this separately.
So we're actually voting on the motion right now, but it is just to receive it as information. Like, it's only information. It's not, no, it's just to receive as information.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there will be a good, wholesome conversation in the future, though. Councillor Dick?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, and through you, you're saying it's just for information, but it says acknowledgement to endorse and adopt a weighted cost share. Thank you. A little clarification, Mayor Sidney.
CEO?
So through the mayor to Councillor Dick, that's just terminology that we're acknowledging that their request, which is called to endorse and adopt a weighted cost share, because that was what they called their request. So we are endorsing the fact that we've received their request, but not that we are supporting the request. It's how the terminology is used under the Municipal Act in minutes. I know it can be confusing, but the name of their report is to endure.
Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. On to resolutions, matters arising from Committee of the Whole. That Renfrew Town Council adopt the following resolutions considered in Committee of the Whole on December 10th, 2024. That Renfrew Town Council received the final report for the Master Transportation Plan as presented on May 7th, 2024. And that Renfrew Town Council approve a boundary expansion for the downtown Renfrew Business Improvement Area. Now I'm going to ask Council, would they like to split these up and vote separately, or just vote? Yeah.
Mayor Sidney, yes, if you could remove the Renfrew Town Council approve a boundary expansion for the downtown Renfrew Business Improvement Area.
To vote separately?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So I'll read it again. The Renfrew Town Council adopt the following resolutions considered in Committee of the Whole on December 10th, 2024. That Renfrew Town Council received the final report for the Master Transportation Plan as presented on May 7th, 2024. Mover, please. Councillor Legree, second by Rivimo. Any questions on this? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. And the next one is the Renfrew Town Council adopt the following resolutions considered in Committee of the Whole on December 10th, 2024. That Renfrew Town Council approve a boundary expansion for the downtown Renfrew Business Improvement Area. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Legree. Any questions? Any comments? Councillor McWhorter.
Through you, Chair, I guess a just statement. Having been in business before outside the boundary area, I had been approached back when I did have my business about this very thing, and I was dead against it because I didn't see what it did for me since I wasn't on the main street. I really do struggle with having, I understand the need for the boundary, but I do struggle with forcing someone to join the BIA. I don't think that's really constitutional that we force something on somebody, more taxation. Having been in a business position myself as a business owner, I wouldn't take kindly to it. I didn't at the time, and I said no. I struggled doing this because I know there are some that outside the now boundary that feel they're being forced into this. So I have a problem with this. I understand it, but I have a problem with the vote on this.
Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney. I wasn't going to make a comment or statement, I think, but however, Councillor McWhorter said something and I think I should follow toe. I do not take away anything the BIA does in this town. They do a fabulous job. The board members are amazing. Our downtown is absolutely beautiful. I do struggle with this too. I struggle with the fact that we've taxed our residents a lot. And now we're taking the heart and soul of some businesses on the off streets and around the town of Renfrew, and we're saying we're going to tax you again. And I have a big problem with that. I really struggle with it. It's very I don't know the right words or terminology I wanted to use. I wasn't prepared to make a statement on this tonight. I was just going to vote and let my vote be heard. So yeah, this is a really tough one for me because I see the good work the BAA does, but then I also listen to the little guy. I feel, again, this is a feeling, that a lot of the people who own businesses in this town that are being affected by this, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Sidney, but I'm pretty sure the landlord would have got the letter, as I own a business in the downtown core, and I got no letter. I heard nothing about it because I'm assuming my landlord got it and he did not tell me about it. So this is where I struggle with it. So I'm gonna vote. It is what it is, and we're just gonna take it from there. So I just thank you.
So during my agenda review this morning or this afternoon with the CAO and the clerk, yes, you are right. It does go to the landlord. The landlord has 30 days to tell the tenant, and then the town gave 30 days for the tenant to respond. That's the that's the way it goes. The town did everything that they were to do, and they did it right to the letter, but it is up to the landlord's responsibility to notify the tenant. So if that didn't happen, that falls on the landlord. Yeah.
Just thinking as I was talking, Mayor Sidney, and I'm going to ask for the CEO's advice on this, is this a declaration for me, seeing I do own a business and that I am being affected by this? I do apologize. I just thought of this and I need to get clarification before I speak any further on this matter.
So no staff member or any person can specifically tell you that you do or do not have one. However, if you feel that you indirectly or directly are receiving a benefit or expecting some sort of a cost outlay from this decision that is different than a large group of individuals, then you probably should declare. So there is a bit of rules in the pecuniary interest law that if you have no different interest than a large group of individuals, then it's no different than you voting on the tax rate for property that you own within this municipality. You're no different than the rest of the property owners. But it's also usually advised that when in doubt, best to declare. But no one person can tell you that you should or should not. You will have to make that determination for yourself.
Thank you. I'm going to declare on this issue. Please strike all my comments from the record. I know you can't do that, but I'm just saying it because it just hit me as I was talking that I shouldn't be discussing this at all, and I do apologize, but I am going to declare on this. Thank you.
Follow up with the Deputy Clerk. Any other questions? Councillor Sabowski.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. And again, hearing what's going around, I do echo what Councillor McWhirter's saying, and even to some words from across the table. My problem was, and not knowing and being naive, I thought that this was a choice, and I thought the BIA to that point was doing an excellent job and is doing an excellent job, but was a choice base for businesses to be part of this. I had learned something through the process that this isn't choice by wanting to be in, it's no choice by location, and to learn that the expansion is going to encroach on some that do not get a choice. I do struggle with this. It's a big struggle to be told that you have to pay extra on top of stuff. So I don't like the idea that individuals don't have a choice whether they want to be part of something bigger or not. I just want to stay small and do their own thing. So I think my vote might reflect that as well.
Councillor Legray.
Through you, Mayor Sidney, I hear what my fellow councillors are saying. I also hear it from the other side where businesses outside the boundary are wondering why the BIA is doing stuff for downtown businesses, but for the outside, like outside the limits. I think now more than ever businesses struggle just to keep the doors open, and I think well, I know what the downtown business, we have a bunch of the members sitting here. They volunteer and work their butts off to improve, our business core, and I think, like I said, I've heard from the other side too, where they're wondering, how can we be part of that? How can we do that? We did, as a town, we did send out, a letter to all the businesses affected, and I know Councillor Andrew Dick said that some people may have not got it, but I think, and the Deputy Clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but we only got 2 or 3 negative responses back. So some businesses mightn't have got it, but you can't say out of all of them that the majority of them didn't receive it. So I think we did our due diligence. I think the businesses spoke, and what I'm hearing out in the field is that a majority of them want this. So I'll be supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, just a comment. And if I can get a confirmation, we had 1 or 2, and I think the second person we were able to deal with in terms of the objections to moving ahead with this. But it was over 100 addresses that we sent letters to. Can I just get a number on that?
That I'm not positive of the exact number of addresses.
As we looked that up, my point is we had 1 or 2 out of Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Sidney. So we did send out letters to 201 properties. Out of those, only 127 of them were residential properties that would be part of the BIA levy. So out of those 127 commercially zoned properties or partially zoned commercial properties, we did receive 2 objections.
You good? Okay. Revimo?
Yes. Thank you. And I think when I went through this, I took a look at what's the objectives of the BIA, and essentially it's to promote the area. And I think we have to expand the area, and this allows a greater diversity in the attractions that can be offered. But to do that, and I can't remember who it was, it might have been you, Councillor Legree, mentioned that people are wondering why the BIA isn't spending money in their area. Why? And you have to tell them it's because you're not paying into the pot, so to speak, and there's only so much money to go around. So I think it in the short term will allow a little broader collective vision about the marketing of our community, and it should also identify maybe smaller pockets of the neighborhoods or the new areas of which will be attractive. So I think it's important to continue with this slowly and develop a sense of community, and then within that a sense of communities, because I think one of the really neat things is when you are visiting is to note there are slightly different areas as you're moving throughout a community, and whether it's in the front door of a business and out the back door into a smaller area, then that's what it is. So I'm glad to see this in a sense. I think we need to expand the area as much as possible because it'll bring more visitors.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor McCord.
You, Chair. Just a comment and a question, I guess, for those that sit on the BIA. When this was thought up and developed, and I have nothing against the BIA, they do great work, and my only issue is it feels like you're kind of forcing anybody in a drawn-over area that's been expanded to join whether they want to or not. When this was all developed and talked about and discussed and a game plan came up with, was there no thought or consideration given to a mechanism to put in place for somebody who is adamant they didn't want to be part of it, especially if they're not on the main street? I mean, if you think about the main street, it's beautiful, they've done a great job, but if you're off the main street, well, some of those streets aren't maybe as optically as nice, and you're not you might feel you're not getting your value for your money, or it might be just the fact that you have a very small business and a very small income that may not afford you to be able to be part of that. Was there no thought given for a mechanism for somebody to make a case individually for themselves to opt out and have the BIA consider that? Or was it just a case, we're drawing a line, we're expanding, and you're either on board or you're not?
So I'm going to hopefully have the CAO back me up on this, but it's my understanding it's more the province sets it, so you can't opt out, if I'm correct.
So through the mayor to all of council, there is a section of the Municipal Act that deals with business improvement areas. So if an area is established by council, by bylaw, then everyone who meets the conditions of the specific BIA for your region, so whether it's you must have a business or business and industrial, or so you can adjust it a little bit, but once you meet those conditions, you are automatically included in it, and it is the municipality's job to follow the bylaw and ensure that the levy is appropriately collected. I am not aware of any clause within that legislation that would permit mechanisms for opting in or out, but I would have to do further research to confirm. But I've read through it a few times this week, and I don't remember seeing anything in relation to that.
Any other questions or comments? So I'm going to jump in here. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. I've heard from a business quite often who's extremely frustrated because the BIA will market a business and they are directly across the street and they don't qualify to get marketed or put through the BIA or any of that stuff. So they're literally looking at the store across the street is getting the benefits of the BIA, but they are not. So that is a frustrating piece for them. My next question to council, because you guys have been bringing it up about, you know, forcing somebody to be taxed and the taxation piece, my question is, the BIA budget went up. The town of Renfrew gave a one-time gift last year of a little over $20,000 to offset their budget increase. This would mean that the current BIA members, their levy is going to go up even higher to cover the budget. Or is council willing to give another gift? So, like, that, what's the impact on both sides, right? So I just want to throw that out there. So, with that being said, if there's no other questions or comments, duly noted that Councillor Andrew Dick has removed himself from the table. I will ask for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried 4-2. Thank you, Council. Matters arising directly from Committee of the Whole. That's of today, and it's that Renfrew Town Council adopt the following resolution considered in Committee of the Whole on January 14th, 2025. E.2.4, Renfrew Town Council adopted 2025 South Ottawa Valley Detachment Board budget at the amount of $114,644, and further the Council confirms its responsibility under the Act to pay the OPP Detachment Board an equal share in the amount of $16,377.71. Mover, please. Councillor Degree, seconded by Revimo. Any questions on this? Councillor Andrew Dick.
Thank you, Mayor Sidney. And just a comment, my displeasure of something that was at Committee of the Whole today and is now on the books to be voted on. I know it's not a big deal. However, I know myself and other councillors have made it clear that we're not comfortable when this happens. I will be supporting this one tonight. I just wanted to make it clear I'm not chipper about it, but I'm going to support it for tonight. Just thought I'd throw that out there if somebody wants to make a comment. Thank you, Mayor Sidney.
So through the mayor to all of council, I understand your concern about that one, as this was something that was technically on your December council meeting and there was clarification requested, and because they are under a bit of a pressure, if they don't get the approval done, then the province will step in and say thou shalt do this, and it may not be to anyone's benefit. So we thought, because it was on the December meeting, that you did have a chance to kind of be aware of it. We will be trying to limit the number of times that things come in the same meeting. We do recognize that concern of wanting to be able to have the adequate time for consideration, but this one, that was why this one made it on this specific meeting.
Any other questions? Revimo?
Not directly connected, but somewhat directly, is are we going to get a final report on the old police services board, just where they were in terms of their budget? Was there any surplus left? Is there any, I know we talked at some point about is there 3 or 4 automobiles, I can't remember anymore, that were part of a program, and I don't know if we ever got a clear answer as to where the ownership of those were at the end of the day. My impression is we get them when they're done with them. So just to make sure we're clear on that. And then I think the connection center too, if we can get a sense of what's going on there. So that's all. I don't expect any answers today.
We'll do both.
Yeah. Sorry. So through the mayor to the Reeve, we actually met with the detachment commander on Monday about this, and we will be bringing a report forward. There is some things that do need to be tidied up and sorted out before we can actually bring that report, but we are working on making sure all of that is clearly laid out for council.
Any other questions? Revimo? Not directly connected, but somewhat directly. Is there any other questions? Any other questions? Any 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 questions?
Thank you.
All right. So I'll read that again if nobody has any more questions. That Renfrew Town Council adopt the following resolution considered in Committee of the Whole on January 14th, 2025, E-2-4, or point 4. Renfrew Town Council adopt the 2025 South Ottawa Valley Detachment Board budget at the amount of $114,644, and further the Council confirms its responsibility under the Act to pay the OPP Detachment Board an equal share in the amount of $16,377.71. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to bylaws. That the bylaws listed on the agenda of January 14, 2025 be taken as read and passed. 01-2025 Downtown Renfrew Business Improvement Area Boundary Expansion. And 03-2025 Lease Assignment and Lease Amendment Agreement at 550 Hall Avenue at Deloriers. Are we okay voting all together?
I can.
You'll have to stop.
Okay, so that we'll separate the two then. So the first one is the that the bylaw listed on the agenda of January 14, 2025 be taken as read and passed. 01-2025 Downtown Renfrew Business Improvement Area Boundary Expansion. Mover, please. Councillor Agree, seconded by Councillor McDonald. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried 4-2. Thank you, Council. Now moving on to 03-2025 Lease Assignment and Lease Amendment Agreement at 550 Hall Avenue, Deloriers. Mover, please. Councillor Agree, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to motions which notice of previous...
Mayor Sidney, you didn't do opposed on that vote,
Opposed? So that's carried 5-2. Thank you. Moving on to motion of which notice has previously been given. Councillor McDonald, Visitor Information Center and overall usage. And the motion is that Renfrew Town Council directs staff to report back on the overall usage of the Visitor Information Center, VIC, over the last 2 to 3 years, and further that staff provide possible options for relocating programs and amenities currently utilizing through the facility. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Legree. Do you have anything you'd like?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through you. And we'll basically cover the two of them as we're getting ready for the next one. The catalyst for both these motions tonight is Director Wither's original discussion and presentation of the Renfrew East Secondary Plan late last year. The Renfrew East Secondary Plan is a long-term 20 to 30-year vision. I believe we need a proper short, medium-term approach to the Mask-O'Brien area that will properly dovetail with the longer vision of the Renfrew East Secondary Plan. This is prime real estate area, and we need to do our due diligence and be pragmatic with our approach to the development of this area. With regard to the VIC position and what we're dealing with here, specifically, in my opinion, that we be realistic with the VIC Center. It's extremely underutilized. It's no longer staffed, and it's located on a prime piece of real estate. And I'd simply like to know what our options are regarding that. So that's the behind the motion.
Okay, perfect. Any questions or comments about that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to K.2. Councillor McDonald, O'Brien, and Mass Surplus Property Opportunities. Let's read the motion. Sometimes technology is great. That Renfrew Town Council directs staff to report back on any potential surplus opportunities and challenges related to town-owned properties located within the O'Brien to Mask block. Mover, please. Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor McWhirter. Do you have anything to add? No. Any questions on this? Councillor McWhirter?
Through you, Chair, and for Councillor McDonald, I'm wondering, I was considering doing a notice of motion for surplus properties in the town that aren't already on our surplus list for staff to bring back to council for discussion. I'm wondering if you would be all right amending your motion to include that, so it would be just related to town-owned properties, period. like, so that that included and all over town. We have a number of properties in this town that we've been sitting on for a number of years. Numerous times it's come up for discussion about selling them. I think Peter's also seen the list, Revimo. I think it's time we started moving on some of those properties, and if they're not already on the surplus list, I'd like them to be added to your motion if that's possible, so we can have good, solid discussion and maybe start selling some of these properties.
McDonald? Through you, Mayor. Did you want to do a motion to amend, and then we'll vote on that?
Yeah, if I could, I'd like to do a motion to amend that.
So I just want, before you do that, because I think the point of the original motion is located within O'Brien and Mask Block, and then additional town-owned lands.
Yeah, that's not already on the surplus list.
Just to make sure that that piece is in there. So,
that aren't already on the surplus list. I believe there is a surplus list already,
yeah.
But so whatever not on that list that's available, I think I'd like to have that added.
Are you okay with that? Okay, so we need a mover for that.
Oh,
Councilor McWhirter, seconded by Councilor Legree. Any further questions on that? That's carried. Thank you, Council. What? Do we vote? Oh, sorry. Do you want me to read it again? So just so we're clear, that Renfrew Town Council directs staff to report back on any potential surplusing opportunities and challenges related to town-owned properties located within the O'Brien to Mask Block, as well as any additional town-owned properties that are not currently on the surplus list. All right, we do have a mover, we do have a seconder. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Council. There's no motion requiring suspension of the rules. Any notice of motion? Hearing and seeing none, we are not going into close for the first time in months. Upcoming meeting, regular council meeting, January 28, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. And the confirmatory bylaw. That Renfrew Town Council adopt the confirmatory bylaw 02-2025 and that it be taken as read and passed. Mover, please. Councillor Emo, second by Councillor Legree. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Before we adjourn, I just want to welcome our CAO. It's been a great week so far working with you, and I look forward to the future, and congratulate Director Bishop on her new appointment. I think she will do fantastic. So with that, we are adjourned at 7:46. Thank you, Council.